This episode is brought to you by PetSmart. Stop by for Yappy Hour with your pet at PetSmart. Save $5 on walk-in grooming services like nail trims, ear cleaning, brushing, and more. No appointment needed every weekday from 2 to 6 p.m. And while you're there, Yappy Hour includes exclusive in-store deals, like 25% off pet toys. Visit services.petsmart.com/grooming to learn more.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. The NBA playoffs are here, and Michelob Ultra is getting you closer to the game than ever with courtside seats and more. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access Courtside 2024 to 2025 sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Ends on July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/superior access/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
That's right, folks. That's what we all want, right? It's a little bit of money. Money, baby. The issue, of course, of the one of those divine issues is whether money can buy you love. But you can buy a lot with money, and that's why we have this show, so we can tell you how you can make more money. And so appreciate people who are regular listeners listening in. Thank you so much for making this show a success. Our ratings keep getting better because of people like you. So thank you. And so much to talk about today. By the way, I'm so excited about a number of things. One is I'm just going to say USA because Coco Gauff has won the French Open. 21-year-old she's a woman now, but oh my gosh, she played fantastic, beat the number one player in the world. And it is a big, big victory for America. It's the first time an American woman has won the French Open in a long, long time. So I'm feeling really, for those of you who watched the match, it was a fantastic match, 3-setter, and Coco showed a lot of grit and determination and poise. And they even played the Star Spangled Banner when she won. And it was really, really a great thing to watch. I'm a very patriotic guy, and it felt good to see an American back on the stage again. She'll probably be now the number one player in the world. That's cool. And then I'm very happy about what's going on with the economy. You know, we're getting a lot of good news on the economy. 2 months ago when we were on the show, everybody, including myself, was on the ledge. Oh my gosh, I'm going to jump off. The stock market's crashing. The economic news was bad. We had trade wars all over the world. And now things are just percolating. It's a hot smoking economy right now. Good jobs report, good data on inflation. I think you're going to see the deficit fall because you've got more people working. There's 7 million job openings today in America, 7 million. I think that's close to an all-time high. So jobs are out there for people who want them. I'm tired of the Democrats trashing Trump. You know, whether you like Trump or not. Look, I'm not here to sell you on Trump. Everybody has their own opinions about Donald J. Trump. But so far, so good on the economy. I think we're really recovering from Bidenomics rather quickly. And I know everybody is concerned about this massive amount of debt and the massive deficits we're running, $2 trillion a year. It all began under Biden. But I think we're going to, through economic growth and through prosperity and through some very strategic tax cuts, we're going to get this done, folks. We are going to win, and we're going to see, I think, very strong growth. And by the way, I mentioned this last week, but I want to mention it again. The growth rate for the U.S. economy is now estimated somewhere between 3.5% and 4.5%. It's a big, big number, folks, really big number. And if we can keep that up, we're going to have the deficit go down, because the more you have economic growth, the more people who are working, the more businesses make profits, the better it is for everyone, and including bringing in more revenue to the government. And when you get more revenue, what happens to the budget deficit? It comes down. Trump is going to help us grow our way out of this. Now, that's not to say that we can't cut spending. We must cut spending, absolutely must cut spending. But what I'm trying to tell you is that I think we're going to see, when we get this big, beautiful bill done, I think we're going to see real prosperity in this country. And I wanted to I wanted to point out to you, for those of you who don't get our hotline, the Unleash Prosperity hotline, get it. Please get it. Please, please, please get this, because it is a great way every morning, and it's free. I'm not selling anything. This is absolutely free, folks. Just go to unleashprosperity.com, click on hotline, and sign up. Give us your email. We'll get it to you for free. I think you'll really like it. Newt Gingrich says that it's the first thing he reads every morning. But I wanted to just give you very quickly, I won't spend too much time on this, and I may not even get through the full list because we have to take a break in a minute. But here are some of the things that you're probably not aware of that are in this bill. I mean, everyone knows it makes the Trump tax cuts permanent, but I'm just going to quickly go down this list because it's very impressive. I said on Larry Kudlow's show earlier today that I think this might be one of the most conservative pro-growth pieces of legislation ever in the history of our country. So here it is. Ready? The bill implements work requirements for able-bodied Americans receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. Who could be against that? If you're going to get a welfare benefit and you can work, you should be working or in a job training program. Second of all, reverses the electric vehicle mandate set by radical climate activists and Biden. So you don't have to buy an electric vehicle if you don't want to. This is America, for goodness sake. It opens federal lands and waters to oil, gas, coal, geothermal, mineral leasing. Great. It expands tax relief for small businesses by increasing the profit tax deduction to 23%, which is a big deal for small businesses. It increases the endowment tax on large universities. I think universities should pay their fair share. It's a good way to get revenues out of millionaires and billionaires. It cancels Biden illegal, unfair student loan bailouts. We get rid of the student loan bailouts. Finally, it requires states to pay a higher match for food stamps and strengthens work requirements. Great. It expands health savings accounts to give Americans greater choice and flexibility in how they spend their healthcare dollars. Wonderful. It incentivizes school choice, one of my big issues. Every child in America should be able to send their kid to whatever school they want to. It empowers American families and students to choose the education that best fits the needs for their kids. What a concept. The bill ends requirement that Venmo, PayPal, and others report these transactions over $600 to the IRS. Do you want the IRS to know every transaction that you're engaged in? I don't. I think it's a Gestapo type of tactic. The bill holds universities financially accountable to the government on defaulted federal student loans. So if somebody goes to Harvard and they default on their student loans, then Harvard should be on the line for that, not you and me and the general taxpayers. It increases timber sales on federal lands. And finally, it authorizes the sale of expanded spectrum to strengthen rural broadband and secure America's technical dominance. And that's only about 10 or 12 of the 50 or so amazing things in this bill. We've got to pass this bill. Now, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I have an exclusive interview with Vice President Mike Pence, who's one of the great conservatives of all time. I love Mike Pence. He's so nice to give us some of his time to tell us what's going on in the country, how we can rebuild our economy and make America great again. So please, do not change the channel, because Mike Pence, the former vice president and former partner of Donald Trump, is coming up right after this.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Our next guest is a hero to me. He's been a friend of mine for, 25 years or more. And he also was, of course, the vice president of the United States for Donald Trump. He was a member of Congress. He was a stalwart conservative throughout all his years in public service. Now he runs a group called Advancing American Freedom. I'm talking about Mike Pence. And I really believe, Mr. Vice President, that if it were not for you, that Donald Trump would not have been elected in 2016. You gave him the conservative credentials that he needed to win that race. So for that and for so many other reasons, I thank you for your service to our country.
Steve, thank you for those very kind words. Great to be on More Money, and congratulations on all your success on the airwaves. But I hope people know that during those Trump-Pence years, you and the man who precedes you on this station, on the radio, were invaluable partners in forging policies that created 7 million good-paying jobs, saw wages rising at the fastest pace in
Yep.
10 years and the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and
Yep.
women in 50 years. So I want to thank you for being a voice for freedom and free markets and for the role you played in our administration.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice President. And by the way, you may recall that when you first ran for Congress, at that time, I think I was running the Club for Growth, and you were one of the first candidates that we ever helped. And by the way, I don't think any candidate had a bigger payoff than you did. So thank you again. So I want to get right down to it. I want to talk to you about issues. I want to talk to you about what's going on in America. And first of all, when you mentioned those statistics that really are important about what you and President Trump achieved in that first term, it was an economic renaissance. And what do you think were the factors behind that?
Well, I think there's simply no question that what drove the economic renaissance during the Trump-Pence years was certainly rolling back red tape, pursuing policies that unleashed American energy. But I really will always believe that those tax cuts that we passed for working families and businesses around the country in 2017 were a centerpiece of economic growth. And as I have been telling people over the last 4 years since I left office, it's incredibly important that people understand that those tax cuts have to be renewed at the end of 2025, or every household in America is going to see nearly $2,000 tax increase. I mean, and so this is an area where I've taken issue and offered some constructive advice to the new Trump administration on a few issues. We can talk about those on tariffs and foreign policy, but on this one, we are 100%. Me personally and our foundation, Advancing American Freedom, taking the message all across the country that the most important domestic priority today for the American people is making sure that the Trump-Pence tax cuts are renewed in full. It remains a foundation of our prosperity, and it really holds the keys of ensuring a boundless American future.
I was told that your group, Advancing American Freedom, is actually running some TV and/or radio ads, really defending those tax cuts and defending the Republicans who are voting for it. In some places, in tough districts. So, is that the case? What are you doing?
Yeah, we are. People can go to advancingamericanfreedom.com on the internet and see these ads. We put them up in battleground districts, about a half a dozen in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan. Because, frankly, a number of our members in those tough districts, Steve, have come under fire for voting for the big, beautiful bill. And I don't need to tell you that this week criticism has come even from the likes of Elon Musk. They're now criticizing the bill. But we wanted to make sure that while they're being criticized from the left and from some even in Republican ranks, that those members of Congress know that we're giving voice to the gratitude of millions of Americans who appreciate the fact that they took the tough vote. Now, I know I'm talking to a great fiscal conservative, and you know you are too. Could there be more savings in this bill? Could we have cut spending more? I would have loved to have seen it. In fact, we're strongly supporting the rescission package that's been sent to Capitol Hill that had cut spending by about $10 billion. But as the Wall Street Journal wrote just the other day, this is not about spending cuts. This is about whether we're going to prevent a $4.7 trillion tax increase on the American people and on the American economy. And we want those members of Congress to have the air cover. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do your show today across the country.
Yeah. Well, thank you for what you're doing. I want to tell a quick story about Vice President Pence back when he was in Congress, and this was a long time ago, Mike. So if I don't remember, if I misremember it, let me know. But remember I think it was that one of the healthcare bills, was it the under Bush, I think it was, where they wanted to expand all the healthcare programs. And there was a key vote that went to like 3:00 in the morning or something in the House. And
longest vote in the history of Congress on the Medicare prescription
Which one was this
bill.
again? It was the what bill?
It was on President Bush was expanding entitlements,
right?
Was adding a prescription drug benefit to Medicare.
Right.
That I didn't oppose. I thought we ought to have a means test in it. We shouldn't be, my mom is 92 years young, and my dad left her in good shape. I didn't think we should be piling up debt on our grandchildren to give free medicine to my mom. But yeah, we dug in and fought president of our own party to try and advance fiscal responsibility and reform that still is much needed.
And it went to 3:00 in the morning. And I think your right arm is still injured because they twisted your arm so many times to try to get you to vote for it. And in the end, you did the courageous thing. It was really a profile in courage. I think they offered you the world in exchange for your vote. But, you in good conscience, you did not vote for that bill. And that was a long night. I remember I'm humbled by that, but it wasn't just me. I mean, I think the hope of the country is that the Republican majorities in the House and the Senate are filled with principled men and women who know the real challenge that we face in the debt crisis facing this country. You and I both know we have work to do, but my concern right now is, and I'm glad to see some modest reforms of Medicaid. We're adding work requirements to Medicaid. Those are important first steps, but at the end of the day, we've got to produce national leadership that'll come clean with the American people, that we need to reform these entitlements to spare future generations a mountain range of debt. And I believe in all of my heart that that day will come soon. That's the voice of Vice President Mike Pence, one of my heroes. We'll be right back, folks, with this exclusive interview with the Vice President. And I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday afternoon.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WBC and affiliates throughout the country. This is our exclusive interview with the great Vice President Mike Pence. And as I said earlier in the show, I don't think that Donald Trump would have been president in 2016 if it had not been for putting a staunch conservative on that ticket, and nobody better than Mike Pence. And you serve the president so admirably, Mr. Vice President. So I want to thank you for that great service. So a couple of things. You and I were chatting offline about the fact that I was saying one of the reasons that I love to do the show is I love to take my callers from our listeners, because I learn so much to listen from to them about what's on their mind. What do they think about issues? And you reminded me that you sort of got your start in talk radio.
I did. I was on 19 radio stations in Indiana, 3 hours a day, 6 days a week in the 1990s. And you were actually on that show. You don't remember.
Oh, I remember.
You were on my show. Yeah. I landed an interview with Steve Moore. And, but yeah, I was kind of like Rush Limbaugh on decaf. We talk about the issues of the day, but like you said, the thing that was most valuable to me in those years on the radio was not learning how to talk. It was learning how to listen. I mean, the people of this country are steeped in common sense and wisdom and a love of freedom and a profound understanding of the ideals that have made this country great, and being able to have a conversation with the people of Indiana every day of the week for 7 years informed all the service
that explains why you're so smart and why you it explains how you were able to feel the pulse of the American people. So let's get down to this budget bill. We were starting a little bit earlier, talking about it in the earlier segment, but I find myself in agreement with you. Obviously, this is a must-pass bill. I'm so glad that Advancing American Freedom is doing everything it can in terms of radio and TV ads and all of the advocacy that you all do. You have a great team there. We try to do that at Unleash Prosperity. I'm concerned that too many Republicans don't want to cut spending. And, I'll give you one statistic, and then I'd love your reaction to this, Mr. Vice President. Yeah. Under the current baseline, $85 trillion. $85 trillion is how much the federal government is supposed to spend over the next 10 years. Under the Republican budget that's so cruel and mean-spirited and is going to throw people, grandmothers off Medicare, Medicaid, so on. You know what? That number isn't $85 trillion. It's $83 trillion. So what are they talking about? Right. There's no real cuts in this. The budget goes up every year. And if I have any complaint, it's that we're not making the reforms in these programs that you were talking about earlier.
It's really true. And I appreciate you mentioning the fact that I'm not new to this fight. I actually ran for Congress before the Republican Revolution of 1994. And by the time I got there, I almost felt like some days I'd run before the revolution and had won after it was over. We were fighting the big spenders in Republican circles with the Republican administration during my years in Congress, and you were right there with us every step of the way. But look, I think this is the time where, since I left office, I've become a grandfather 4 times over and working on the 5th, and we're blessed beyond measure. But I look at those kids, those little grandchildren of mine, and I just think I can't walk by on the other side of the road as we pile $36 trillion and counting on debt on those kids. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the reasons why when I jumped into the presidential race back in 2023 and the work that we've done at our foundation before and since, I just want to continue to be a voice for the kind of not only strong defense, traditional values, but commitment to fiscal responsibility and limited government that brought me to this party. I mean, I joined the Republican Party under Ronald Reagan, and too much today in the Republican Party, we see people embracing big government, unwilling to roll their sleeves up and do the hard thing. And I think that underestimates the American people. I think the American people are ready for leadership that will explain the debt crisis that we're facing. And I'm actually also concerned. We were talking about the tax cuts in the last segment. There are some voices in and around our party that are talking about raising the top marginal rate.
It's terrible. Terrible.
As a way of making the big, beautiful bill. Our group did the math on it. Like I need to tell you, people say, well, what's the big deal about raising the top marginal rate? We cut it from 39.6 down to 37. And there are some people that are sympathetic to raising it back up. Well, more than half of the people that pay the top marginal rate are small business owners who report as individuals all the income from their business and plow it all back into the business. I grew up in a gas station business in southern Indiana, and my family was part of a pass-through corporation. I watched my dad work hard to make that business successful. The last thing that we ought to do is fail to renew all of these rates, or ultimately result in what would be the largest small business tax increase in history by letting the top marginal rate go up. So I think now is the time we need more voices like yours out there, Steve. I hope we can be a part of that chorus that's saying, yes, we need to come to terms with this debt crisis. We need to go to the American people with a comprehensive and a compassionate approach to reforming entitlements and the welfare state in America over the long term. But we also need to preserve the pro-growth tax cuts and policies that will create a foundation for putting us back on a fiscally sustainable path And at Advancing American Freedom, we're going to continue to make that fight.
Well, just in our last minute, I'm talking to Vice President Mike Pence. The one of the concerns I have is that you've got these new groups that are emerging on the right. One of them is this movement called national conservatism, and I'm a conservative. You're a conservative, but it's a kind of big government agenda of going after right to work laws. I believe Indiana is a right to work state.
We are.
Indiana is most. We've got 26 states now that basically say the government can't force you to join a union. We want low tax rates, as you talked about, but some of these big government national conservatives want to raise the tax rates. We believe in the benefits of immigration. Some want to be restrictive of not just illegal but legal immigration. Some of them are against trade, and so some of them are saying we have to move beyond Reaganism. And I'm sorry, I grew up with Reagan, and why would we want to do that? Reagan showed us the path.
Well, it's true, and it wasn't just Reagan; it was long before him. I mean, Abraham Lincoln described himself as a conservative. And I believe that those ideals and economic principles, free market and the like, are all at the very heart of the American dream. Look, I think the Republican Party in the days ahead faces a real choice, whether we're going to stay true to the traditional conservative agenda that we governed on during the Trump-Pence years, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored to conservative principles. And all the things you just described are continuing to emerge in and out of those in public life around the Republican Party. I want to be a winsome voice for a commitment to the conservative agenda that's always made this country strong and prosperous and free. And I couldn't be more grateful for your voice in that.
Well, Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for joining. That's Vice President Pence, who is one of my heroes. And I've been in Washington 40 years. I think Mike Pence is one of the few people who's never let me down. And that's saying a lot. So thank you for the service to our country. Thank you for coming on. I know how busy you are. The group is at Advancing American Freedom. How do people get in touch with you guys?
AdvancingAmericanFreedom.com or at American Freedom on X. And we'd love to have people follow our work, be a part of what we're doing. But thanks for having me on More Money, Steve.
Thank you so much, folks. That's Mike Pence, and we'll be right back on The More Money Show on WABC.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Not all EVs are created equal. The Ioniq 9 sets a new standard. Hyundai's first all-electric EV with 3 rows. Space in an EV, finally. Plus, with over 300 miles of range, ultra-fast charging capability, and tech infused with safety features, this isn't just space. It's freedom reimagined. More room, more possibilities. Learn more about the Ioniq 9 at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, folks, that was a special interview. I have so much admiration for Mike Pence, and it kind of breaks my heart that Mike Pence and Donald Trump had this breakup. I don't think it's as bad as the breakup that we're seeing with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, but I do believe that Mike Pence speaks a lot of wisdom, and he's a great, great friend. So now I want to bring on Mark Skousen, who is an economist at Chapman University. He also runs Freedom Fest, and I'm going to ask him to tell you all about that because it's a great event. I've been going to that for many, many years every summer. And he also has a great new book out that I wanted for you to all hear about on one of the 5 or 10 greatest Americans, Ben Franklin. So first of all, Mark, thanks for joining.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm just delighted with the title, More on Money. That's a great title.
More money. You better believe it. So, Mark, first of all, tell people, I think I've been going for 15 years or so to your Summer Freedom Fest. Many years it was in Las Vegas. One year, actually, I debated, I don't know if you remember this, I debated Paul Krugman in the economic boxing match of the decade. And I think I won that debate, by the way, folks. I think I think that the vote showed I beat Paul Krugman in that debate. But you've been doing this for many years. So what's on tap for this summer's Freedom Fest?
You know, I should also mention, Steve, that was the very year that Donald Trump, at the beginning of his election, came and spoke on Saturday.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes.
7-Eleven. It was his lucky day, and his poll numbers started increasing because we had huge coverage. I couldn't believe the media coverage and standing room only.
Yes.
And, of course, it was a libertarian audience, so half the audience gave him a standing ovation. The others sat on their so, you know, he's a bit divisive figure even back then. So
yeah. So what's going on this year?
This year we're in Palm Springs, California, and it starts next week. And it's just going to be a great event. If people go to freedomfest.com, they can read. Is
it too late for Mark? Is it too late for people to get tickets, or can people still sign up?
No, we still have room, and in fact, one of our hotels, the Hilton, we still have a room block that we need to fill, but we'll have at least 1,500 people there.
Wow.
And we have Steve Forbes coming, of course, on a regular basis. And we have John Fund, your buddy.
Yeah,
and
sure.
We have Kat Timpf, who had overcome breast cancer and just had a baby, and she just insisted on speaking. She's always wanted to speak there. And we also have the Stoic philosopher Ryan Holiday. I don't know if you know him or not, but he's a real interesting motivational speaker. We've always had success with motivational. And we have Ross Ulbricht, who was pardoned, as you know, by President Trump with he was given 2 life sentences for his role as in the dark web, as the punishment didn't fit the crime. So he's going to be speaking. So it's really going to be a fun event. We have Cato and Heritage. Heritage is going to be there in a big way. So it's going to be a really fun conference.
Okay, so and when does it start? You said this coming week.
Starts on Wednesday, and we finish up with our Saturday night banquet. We have a full 3-day investment conference, the Anthem Film Festival. We have the best libertarian films in the country. We have a comedy show. We just have a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
we even have a libertarian magician showing up. So he's going to make inflation disappear.
Oh, I love that. So I've been to many of these folks, and you don't want to miss it. And if you're in the area, or if you can fly out to Palm Springs, it's a wonderful hotel, wonderful conference, one of the most important conferences of the year. So let's get to your new book, Mark. The book is about Ben Franklin, and the title is The Greatest American. You said it's the #1 history book right now on Amazon. Congratulations. It just came out. Why? Well, let me say this. I think I would certainly put Ben Franklin in the top 10 of greatest Americans of all time. I don't know if I would put him first. I'd probably say George Washington is the greatest American, but make the case for Ben Franklin.
Yes. So first of all, people need to know that my book, The Greatest American, is not just a standard biography that tells his story from beginning to end, how he lived the American dream and so forth. But what it is a series. I have 80 chapters, and each chapter says what can we learn from Ben Franklin's 84 years in a career that covered almost the entire 18th century.
Right.
And what can we learn about trade and taxes and inflation and running a good business? He was so successful that he retired at age 42. He is considered America's greatest diplomat. Even Ken Burns
Right. He was the ambassador to France, right?
He was ambassador to France, and he was the only one. See, this is the thing that a lot of people don't know, that without the French support of troops and ships and so forth, we would not have won the Battle of Yorktown. George Washington may well have ended up in prison. So and Franklin was the only commissioner. They had 5 or 6 commissioners, so they didn't trust Franklin because he was 70 years old. But he raised all the money. He was.
Wow.
I have a whole chapter on
amazing
what was his technique as a fundraiser, and he just loved the people, and the French people loved him, and that made such a huge difference. So he's really quite an interesting character. I see him as a Dr. Phil kind of person that if you wanted to sit down and have a beer with, who would you do it? Now, in case of George Washington, there's a lot of questions that he would not answer. He would not answer why he never had children. He would not, Thomas Jefferson would not answer his relationship with Sally Hemings. That would be considered inappropriate. But Ben Franklin even talked about his being his hard to govern passions, his errata in life of having an illegitimate child, William.
Yeah.
So there's some really fun things in the book.
Yeah. So I read Walter Isaacson's book about Ben Franklin a number of years ago, and I remember a lot of that. And I don't think that Ben Franklin, did he ever go to college?
No, but he got an honorary degree from Harvard and Yale and St. Andrews, and after that was always known as Dr. Franklin.
Wow.
So, he was pretty much self-taught. He loved to read, was a voracious reader. And here's another thing that would be very interesting regarding the Elon Musk and President Trump's their feud. Franklin had a lot of enemies in the Pennsylvania legislature. And so one day he went to a guy that didn't like Franklin at all and said, "Hey, I see you have a book in your library that I would like to borrow. Do you mind if I borrow your book?" And that developed a friendship, and he was always cooperative. And he said at that point he learned a very important lesson, that you should never speak ill of someone in public. And I think that feud really got started because they started yelling at each other.
That's a great point.
And Franklin learned not to do that. And he would often write letters where he was really mad, but then he wouldn't send the letter. And unfortunately, in today's world, you push a button and the email is out, the text is out.
So I think that's a great point because, the problem is that, with this feud that's going on between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and I admire both of them greatly, is they're both diminishing themselves through the nasty things they're saying about each other. And, Ben Franklin, by the way, Ben Franklin was beloved in Europe, wasn't he?
Oh, yes. And in fact, this is why I think my book is appropriate, because unfortunately, a lot of foreigners are seeing America as representing the ugly American again, and we need to fight against that. In my book, The Greatest American, Ben Franklin is beloved by the French, beloved by the English, beloved by the Asians and the Chinese. He spoke about the positive side of the French people, how they were always for the underdog, and it's really the love affair that, by the way, he did have an enemy. One of the founding fathers was Franklin's worst enemy, and it was John Adams. And John Adams was a commissioner in France, and he hated the French, and he disliked Franklin's amours with some of the French ladies and stuff like that. He thought he was a religious heretic, and it was really bad blood. But Franklin always worked with John Adams to try to maintain some kind of a friendship. And so, yes, Franklin and Jefferson are both really beloved by the French people.
So he was pretty instrumental in getting the French to help in the Revolutionary War, wasn't he?
You're talking about Franklin?
Yes.
Yes. So Franklin raised all the money. No other commissioner raised any money. Arthur Lee never raised any way. John Adams, no money at all by the French. It was only Franklin.
Wow.
And at one point, the king said, we've run out of money, you've run out of money, but because of the love you have for our French people and the love we have for you, I'm giving you as a free gift 6 million livres. And it was that kind of thing that caused people. The American Revolution was won. So George Washington is the father of our country, but Ben Franklin is really the grandfather.
So so tell us, is the story about the kite and the electricity, is that a true story?
Yes, he actually, there's a little bit, I do have a chapter in my book, The Greatest American, chapter 80. It's the last chapter. It's called Ben Franklin and His Critics. And some historians have argued that his electric experiments were faked, but the evidence is pretty strong because others have now come forth and shown that he actually did this. He was just afraid of the publicity because he thought maybe the experiment would not work and that they would be killed, because it was a very dangerous thing to fly a kite during an electric storm. And by the way, electric storms are greater in North America than in any other part of the world. So this is a perfect place. And Franklin became America's first scientific American, if you will. Right. And he won the Copley Prize, which was like the Nobel Prize. So when he went to England, when he went to France, he was considered the greatest American. Right. Most famous American. George Washington was not very well known compared to Franklin. He was the most famous American. And when he died, 20,000 people showed up for his funeral.
Amazing. 20,000. That was when we were a small country. Well, we've just got 2 minutes left. What else about Ben Franklin? What do you think made him so great? I mean, here is a guy who came from pretty humble beginnings. He's the ultimate kind of Horatio Alger story. He started working when he was very young, and he was an inventor, a patriot, a diplomat, a great businessman. I mean, in everything he did well.
Well, in fact, I would say if there's one thing you can learn from Ben Franklin is that whatever you do, make sure that your work is useful. So he wasn't just a scientist; he was an inventor of the Franklin stove, of the electric, the lightning rod, the bifocals. These are all useful things. Yes, and his diplomacy, all very useful. As a businessman, very useful events and trying to advance and so forth. So I have these 80 chapters, and it's, again, all what we can learn today from Franklin.
Yeah, I've just started reading it. It's just a fantastic book, folks. It's called The Greatest American. It's by Mark Skousen. And it's a good and fun, easy read. You know, I did read the Walter Isaacson book. That's a pretty heavy book, and it took me a long time to read it. But this really cuts to the chase. And it's thanks to people like Ben Franklin that we have the great country that we have. So, Mark, thanks for writing that book. Thanks for putting on Freedom Fest. People, if you want to go to Freedom Fest, just go to freedomfest.org. And we will be right back, folks. Freedomfest.com. And we'll be right back. Now you get to hear from two of the best in the business, Ryan and Bob Payne.
Hey, it's Ryan Payne and Bob Payne from Payne Capital Management, coming to you every week on the More Money Show, talking about the stock market, the economy, your retirement. And Bob, man, oh man, there is not a dull moment on the street of dreams these days, right? One tweet, markets can go way up or they can go way down, depending on if we have tariffs. One day we have deals. One day we don't have deals again. It's been pretty crazy out there. And of course, the markets have been more volatile than normal, I would say.
Well, Ryan, I want to give kudos to all the listeners who are out there, because based on all the research that I read, the average normal investor, people like you and I, have stayed the course and taken advantage of these dips, where the professionals have been sitting on the sidelines, twiddling their thumbs, worried about the uncertainty that's coming from Washington right now.
No, it's pretty wild. There have been stats out there that show that institutional investors panicked when we first had Liberation Day, when we first had the announcement of tariffs. Meanwhile, if you look at retail investors, according to the data, not only do they stay the course, but they actually bought the dip. So I have a feeling here that most people have actually made some money, Bob, over the last couple of weeks. They stayed invested. For the most part, that's a good thing.
Well, anecdotally, Ryan, I don't know if this is true or not, But it looks like most of the buying is coming from the listeners of this show. They've been listening to us that stay the course, and to follow our strategy is to look at these dips as opportunities, not a time to react or to panic to every new development.
Bob, you're probably giving us way more credit than we deserve, but I will say we have stayed bullish here. We've stayed optimistic. Really critical to stay the course through a lot of this volatility. But I think the problem is when markets are doing really well, or maybe your portfolio is up a lot over the last couple of years, because let's face it, we have been in a big booming bull market. Maybe we've had a couple hiccups along the way, but markets have gone a lot higher. People's net worth has gone up a lot. But I think the problem is when you're making money, you stop paying attention to the details. And I think we're seeing a lot of that right now.
Yeah, you don't want to leave a lot of money on the table, Ryan. We just, one of our listeners just came in and sat down with us, and it turned out their internal cost of their portfolio was in excess of $110,000 a year. That's more than a lot of people make in a year, right?
Yeah, that's incredible. But I think what happens is, especially when you're getting close to retirement, is the risk parameters come off, right? And I think that's what we're seeing right now. Everything's great when you're in a big booming bull market and everything's going up. But as we know, Bob, these times don't last. And unfortunately, when they go the other way, there's no warning sign, right? There's no bell that gets rung to let you know that, hey, it's time to get more conservative. And I think right now that's probably one of the bigger issues we're seeing when people are building their portfolios for retirement.
I think you're talking about my fellow baby boomers, Ryan. Most of the retirees in this country are baby boomers. And you know what? I've been doing this for 50 years. Never in my career have I seen where it's a good idea for a retiree to have an aggressive portfolio, as aggressive as they had when they were in their 20s and 30s.
Well, that's what happens, right? A lot of it just becomes a drift in your portfolio. Maybe you had 50, 60% in the stock market, but now the market's up a lot over the last couple of years. Now maybe you have 70% in the stock market. And you don't even know it. You don't know the risk that you have. And maybe your portfolio is concentrated in all those hot stocks, those Magnificent Seven stocks, whether it's NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, etc. Well, it's all great when it's going up. But as you and I know, Bob, trees don't go to the sky. And at some point, you will have a massive sell-off or correction. And when that happens, a lot of us are going to be in a bad position.
Well, as I've learned over the years, it's more about psychology than it is about finance. And if you're an aggressive investor, you feel very comfortable until your portfolio tanks 30%. Then you might think, well, maybe Mike Tyson had it right. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
And that's the problem, right? Is we don't know when the next downturn is going to happen. And that's why when it comes to investing and building your portfolio for retirement, you have to be proactive, not reactive. You can't wait. And when things are going really well, that's the time to be proactive. And nobody wants to be because they see their portfolio going up and up and up.
Well, my favorite Bobism is time passes and markets operate. And neither cares how you think or how you feel. So, you're going to have this uncertainty about the future. And the only way to combat uncertainty, Ryan, is to be a well-diversified portfolio. Now, that's an overused term, but you've got to be diversified in this environment.
Yeah, and there's only a couple things that you can really control. Let's face it, we can't control the stock market. We can't predict it. My crystal ball broke like 25 years ago when I got in the business, unfortunately. I can't tell you what's going to happen next. But we know, number one, you can control the risk. You need to understand what's your downside risk. Most of us don't know what that is. Number two, you need to understand the fees on your portfolio, and a lot of them are hidden. And if you have high costs, like I just did an analysis for a client, and we figured that they were paying almost $100,000 in fees they didn't know about. That's $2 million over the next 20 years that we could cut out by just running a lower cost strategy. And thirdly, Bob, it's income, right? Most portfolios aren't generating enough consistent income, which is much more reliable than the ups and downs of the market.
So, Ryan, if I hear you correctly, what you're telling me is you've got to look at your portfolio at least once a year and figure out, am I getting the income that I deserve? Am I getting the highest income? Do I have the lowest fees? And why do I want a partnership with the IRS? Am I paying the least amount of taxes? Why should I pay unnecessary taxes in my portfolio?
You say this all the time. It's not what you make, it's what you take. You have to really look at not only what are my gains, but what's going in my pocket after taxes I can pay my bills with, because you can't pay your bills with pre-tax returns. So all this stuff has to be figured out. And the more that you can create certainty in your portfolio, and that's actually creating income that comes in every year, because we don't know what the market's going to do every year, keeping the fees low and keeping the taxes low has a huge impact on whether you make it through retirement or don't. And most of us don't run that analysis.
Well, just keep in mind, Rye, that your expectations of what the markets are going to do go hand in hand with your longevity. And, thanks to the baby boomers, we're living longer. We're living longer than the previous generation. Your generation is going to live longer than the baby boomers. I don't think a lot of people are taking into consideration how long they're going to live and how long their money has to last.
Just because maybe last year was a good year in the stock market, not every year is going to look like that. What you have to ask yourself is, well, there's going to be a couple years where there's big drawdowns in the market. How does that affect my retirement? If I'm invested the way I am today and the market sells off big tomorrow, is that going to be detrimental to what I live off of on a monthly basis? And I'd say for most of us, we haven't run that analysis. And that's a big problem, especially right now because things are going well.
Well, they're going well, but they're even better if you're going to be a smart investor right now, because as I always say, slow and steady wins the race. And when I mean slow and steady, I mean every year collecting dividends that are going up, every year collecting income that's going up on your bonds that are rolling over. Right now, we have one area of the market that's outperformed, which is creating tremendous opportunity in dividend-paying stocks, tax-free municipal bonds, and treasury yields. You've got to take advantage of this opportunity that the market's giving you right now.
Yeah, it's time to be proactive, not reactive. And you're thinking to yourself, I get it, Bob Ryan. I need to understand what my fees are on my portfolio. I need to understand the income on my portfolio and risk. Well, here's your shot to do it. We leave 10 slots open. If you saved over $1 million for your retirement, Bob and I will run for you our total financial master plan, and we'll do that with no obligation or cost. It's a full holistic review. We literally look at everything. We're going to go as far as building you your own personalized financial portal. There's not a firm out there that's going to do this work up front. We're going to hone in on every financial issue you need to address today. We're going to give that income plan for retirement. How do you draw from Social Security? How do you draw from your portfolio, factoring in inflation and not running out of money? We're going to build you that dynamic income plan. We're going to look at diversification. Markets have been wild over the course of the last couple of months. Has your portfolio been up and down like a yo-yo, or have you been sitting with way too much money in cash, CDs, money market funds, paralysis by analysis? We're going to put together a full investment game plan, tie it to your goals, show you how to grow your wealth, but most importantly, protect it over the rest of your life. And we're going to look at fees and taxes. Wall Street loves to sell you high cost, tax inefficient products, whether it's private equity, annuities, mutual funds, life insurance products, brokerage products. We're going to do a deep dive of every investment you own. We're going to show you how to reduce the cost and optimize your portfolio for taxes. It's not what you make, it's what you take. You'll get our full tax playbook. We literally have 10 slots open for the whole show if you saved over $1 million for your retirement.
All you have to do is text or call 844-752-6692. That's 844-752-6692, or just simply call 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-PLAN-NYC. If you're one of our next 10 callers, you've saved over $1 million for your retirement. Our team of financial advisors and certified financial planners will help you to take the uncertainty out of your portfolio and be certain that you can achieve your goals and your dreams with your values. But you're not going to have a plan if you're not one of our next 10 callers, so don't miss out. Give us a call or text 844-752-6692. That's 844-752-6692. Or again, just simply call 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-PLAN-NYC.
If you want to learn more about myself and Bob and our firm, Payne Capital Management, of course, that's Payne. Simply go to BeBullish.com. That's BeBullish.com. Stay tuned. We got more money coming your way.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Second hour of the More Money Show. So thank you so much for joining. Boy, we've had a busy afternoon already. Had a wonderful interview with one of my favorite people in Washington and in politics, the great former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, who is just filled with wisdom. And so I'm just so thrilled that I was able to have him carve out some time and come onto the show. And now I have another good friend coming on, Ralph Reed. You all know Ralph Reed from Faith and Freedom Foundation. He does an amazing job. He and I have worked together in the trenches, 30, 35 years together. And so there's a bunch of things I've wanted to ask Ralph about. He's one of the most astute political minds I know. So let me just start with this, Ralph. I know you want to talk about this AI issue, and I want to talk with you about that too. But before we get into that, what is your take about the big, beautiful bill? I say we have to pass this. What are you hearing?
Well, as you know, Steve, I was greatly privileged to join a coalition letter with you and Grover Norquist at Americans for Tax Reform, Alfredo Ortiz at Job Creators, many others. But, Steve, we did it as a socially conservative organization.
Yep.
And a lot of people would say, well, why in the world would a, pro-life, pro-family, kind of culturally conservative organization care as much about passing this tax cut as everybody else? And the answer is because if we don't pass it, Steve, it's a roughly $5 trillion tax increase. It's the largest tax increase in American history. And I'm sure you've already been covering this, and so I do not want to insult the intelligence of your listeners. But people need to understand that this bogus Congressional Budget Office finding that this is going to increase the deficit by $2.5 trillion is based on a completely false premise.
Yes.
It's a false premise of public policy, which is this. The current Trump tax cut is set to expire on December 31st of this year.
Yes.
Therefore, they argue that current law will be no tax cut. Therefore, if you cut taxes, you're exploding the deficit. That's not true. Under no circumstances would any president of either party or any Congress of either party allow these tax cuts to expire. Even Joe Biden, appealing to the radical left in an election year, was advocating a slight increase in the corporate rate, an increase, but not all the way to where it was. And he was for the top rate going up. He wasn't going to touch the lower rates. He wasn't going to touch the child tax credit. He wasn't touching anything else. So the baseline assumption is not that there won't be a tax cut. It's the only issues, Steve, and nobody's a better advocate of this than you. The only issue is the tax cut going to be a bunch of giveaways like Biden and the Democrats would do, or will it be a lower rates, pro-growth, supply side, pro-jobs tax cut?
Yeah.
And that doesn't even get into things like securing the border, the funding for the wall, and everything else. So we've got to pass this tax cut. It is the highest priority. I am in Washington every week meeting with leadership, meeting with members, and I urge every one of your listeners, even if it's somebody that isn't going to vote for it if Jesus comes back, even if it's somebody who's already in the camp, let them hear from you. Email them, text them, call their office. People need to hear from you. Yes, even people from New York.
Well said. And by the way, on the first hour of the show, Ralph, I mentioned the fact that, you're quite right about the tax provisions of this bill, but excuse me, I would argue this is one of the most conservative pieces of legislation maybe ever. It has stuff like, requirements for work for welfare, something all people are certainly in favor of, gets rid of the electric vehicle mandate requiring people to buy electric cars. It opens up federal lands for oil and gas and drilling. It
secures the border.
it secures the border. I mean, all these things. Oh, it gets rid of Biden's illegal student loan program. I mean, I could go on and on, but it's not just a tax cut. There's amazing things. Oh, school choice, something you and I have worked on, Ralph, for 30 years. This directs federal money to parents and school districts and gets rid of the blob in Washington. So there's a lot of really positive things in this bill.
Well, and on my side of the ball, Steve, I know not every one of your listeners, this is their most important issue, but for faith and freedom, it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
It ends the taxpayer funding of abortion through massive subsidies to Planned Parenthood. And even if you're pro-choice, you shouldn't be in favor of forced taxpayer funding of abortion.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I've always thought, how can you say you're pro-choice and for taxpayers having to pay for abortions? It's outrageous. So, good discussion, Ralph, but I want to get into this really critical issue that you brought to my attention about artificial intelligence and technology. You and I both agree, I think all of our listeners do, that the United States has got to dominate the artificial intelligence race and the robotics race, just like we won the internet race and dominated that industry. And I'm worried, and you are, about what's going on with this. So will you explain what's going wrong with the AI race and what we need to do about this?
Well, it's critical, Steve, because it isn't just what happened in the 90s on a bipartisan basis, where there was an agreement codified in the Telecommunications Act of 1996, passed by the Newt Gingrich Congress and signed into law by Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, yeah.
That we would let the internet flourish, that it would not be taxed, that we wouldn't be taxing the internet. It would be tax-free. We would reward innovation. And that was a bipartisan decision. And what happened as a result? Social media, search, everything else online is dominated by the United States because the EU and others regulate it.
We have 6 of our companies, Amazon, Google, Meta, these great, incredible companies are the dominant companies in the world in the internet. And I want to make sure that we're number one in AI. But I'm worried that this is going to get messed up by government. So what do we need to be doing?
The danger is that there's a faction in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
That they call themselves effective altruists. And what it really is a rebranding of anti-capitalism. They say that artificial intelligence should not be developed for purposes of profit. Well, if you remove the profit motive, if you remove shareholder value, guess what you lose, Steve? You lose innovation.
Innovation, yes, and capital
investment. They also want government regulation. There's all these doomsayers that are saying AI is going to eat the planet. It's going to destroy the human race. There's one guy recently who was saying it's going to lead to 10 to 20% unemployment. Let me tell you something. That's what was said about the automobile, that it was going to put carriage houses out of business. And stables would go away. It's like a headline saying when the electric light bulb was invented that the candle making industry is going to evaporate.
Well, there's a term for what you're talking about.
You want to encourage innovation, so we need no government regulation or minimal government regulation, and we have to win the war with China, and I know you're in agreement on that.
Totally. And what you're talking about, there's a term for what you're talking about, which is called Luddites. And Luddites were against machines and tractors and things like that. And of course, as we've had technology, look how it's changed our lives in every possible way. Now, we need to, in my opinion, make sure we beat the Chinese in the AI race. And it sounds like this idea, we're all going to be altruistic. I mean, when has government or a nonprofit organization ever invented anything?
Yeah, exactly. And on the China front, by the way, the key to that is they're developing AI technology, including DeepSeek and others, that is essentially spyware. And I believe very strongly that the Congress and President Trump needs to look very carefully at that, because it's kind of like help me out, Steve, what's the name of the Chinese telecom company? Is it Huawei?
They've got so many of them, Huawei.
You got to make sure that we're not loading Chinese spyware on our phones and on our mobile devices. So that's another thing that the administration's got to look at. The good news is President Trump's instincts on this are outstanding. He understands America's got to be the leader. J.D. Vance gets it because he comes out of that private equity world and he understands innovation. So we just need to support the president and the Trump-Vance administration in doing the right thing.
It is absolutely critical that the United States lead the world in artificial intelligence, AI, and robotics, Ralph. And so I want to work with you to make sure that we do that. And it's going to be happening because we have great companies that do it, not government and not, nonprofit organizations, but for-profit companies. The profit motive is the greatest invention ever made. And somehow people think that profit is a bad word. These people in Silicon Valley have made so much profit. Now they don't want to make a profit on this.
Well, hundreds of years ago, Adam Smith called it the invisible hand.
Right.
It was the desire for profit that drove innovation, that benefited consumers, created jobs, and grew the economy. And that's, the idea of trashing the profit motive. You do not understand the most basic things about not only markets, but basic macroeconomics.
So true. Well, Ralph, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I want to bring you on in another few weeks so we can have a longer discussion about this. But pay attention, folks. We got to win the race for AI. We'll be right back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by The Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Boy, we've had a busy afternoon. I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon in the middle of June, and it's all the kids are out of school now, and so it's one of those great seasons where you can kind of kick back on a Saturday afternoon. And appreciate all of you for listening in. If you're new to the show, we're on every Saturday afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. I'm Stephen Moore, economist. I have a book out called The Trump Economic Miracle. And by the way, it looks like what's happening with Trump right now is a miracle. I hope you all get our Unleash Prosperity hotline. If you are not getting it, please go. I'm not selling you anything. It's unleashprosperity.com. It is a daily email that you'll get that you can learn a lot about what's going on with the economy, with politics. We put a little humor in there. My friend Newt Gingrich says it's the first thing he reads every morning, and I want you to read it too, because if you want to be the smartest person in the room, getting the hotline is a good way to do it. So that's unleashprosperity.com, and just click on hotline. I want to mention that I will be taking your calls today. One of the reasons I love to do this show live, which I do most weekends, is because I love to hear from you. And I've always said we have the smartest listeners in America on this show. And every week you prove me to be right because you have such great comments and bits of wisdom that I like to share with all of my other listeners. So the question of the day, Elon or Donald Trump? Who do you like in this? I mean, who do you think is right in this ongoing spat? I like them both. I like Donald Trump a lot. I've worked for him. I think Elon Musk is a great, great entrepreneur and a great, great businessman. It kind of breaks my heart that they're having this public feud. But I want to hear from you. What do you think of this feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So call in on the More Money hotline, 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. And in the bottom of the hour, we'll start. I've left a nice block of time so I can hear from you all. But in the meantime, I want to, I'm really pleased to bring on my next guest, David Chavern. He is the CEO of the American Council of Life Insurers. Now, you're probably wondering why you want to hear from someone like that. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, I'm big into the whole idea of annuities. And this is a way, this is the More Money Show, how you can make more money. Annuities, I've always believed, are a very good investment opportunity for folks. So I wanted to bring on David to explain how annuities work and why they're so important. But I wanted to just let you know that just some of these statistics are amazing. The lifetime income from annuities saves Social Security $100 billion. $100 billion. So this saves money for the Social Security system. Private disability income insurance benefits save the Social Security disability program another $8 billion. And this is a way for you to have a secure financial future. I'm 65, so I want to make sure that I don't run out of money in my retirement years. David, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about annuity. Tell me about what you do, and specifically annuities. Why are annuities important for people, and why are they a good source of retirement income?
Great. Thank you so much. The life insurance industry is sort of the quiet giant of the economy, where we are the only industry that will enter into 50, 60, 70-year agreements with folks.
Wow.
And use all the money from that to invest in the economy. We invest $8 trillion into the U.S. economy. And
$8 trillion?
$8 trillion.
Wow.
We're as I call us, the ballast of the U.S. economy. But a big part of that, a growing part of what people want from us is they do want to have assurance for their lifetime assured income. And in particular, in a world where there's fewer defined benefit pension plans out there, essentially an annuity is a way for you to create your own pension plan. And
by the way, can I just interrupt you? Can I just interrupt you 1 second? Because as I just said, I'm 65, so I'm starting to be. I don't know if I'm going to live to 75 or 85 or 95. I don't know, but I want to make sure. And I'm not rich. I've done pretty well in my life, but I'm not rich. I want to make sure I don't run out of money.
Yeah, and we will, my members enter into an annuity with you in which they'll pay you every month for however long you live. By the way, it could be 20 years, could be 30 years, could be 40 years, could be 50 years. Right. But, the industry is set up to take these very long-term views, very long-term agreements with folks that really, banks don't do that. Mutual funds don't do that. Your 401k isn't doing that. This is a long-term promise that we do.
And so go on then. How do the annuities work?
So you purchase, you take a chunk of money that you've saved up, whether it's from 401k or that you saved up in your life, and you purchase a contract that either starts immediately paying you or you can defer it. I just bought one myself, by the way, in which I'm not expecting them to start paying me for 10 years or more, right? And they enter into a promise in which they agree to pay you assured income every month for the rest of your life. Right. It's an industry that has an incredible experience of being there when people need them to be there. We're a highly regulated industry. It's not volatile. Most of my members have been around more than 150 years, so they're not going anywhere. And so you get real assured lifetime income, which is really, at the end of the day, what people want most.
And so now what about young people? Somebody maybe just starting their working life, maybe somebody in their 20s or early 30s. Would they need to have a product like this?
Well, again, we offer a bunch of products for throughout your life. Somebody starting a family may want, sort of the classic life insurance policy, because they want them to be protected. And again, listen, it's very often to sell people a policy in their 20s that may not pay off till they're 95 plus, right? So
but over that period of time, you're going to have a lot of money. You're going to have a nice nest egg at that point.
Exactly. So you can build up savings. The industry uses that money to invest very safely because it's highly regulated in the U.S. economy. We're the biggest purchasers of corporate bonds in the economy, just by way of example. So it's one of these industries that people don't appreciate because we don't cause a lot of problems. And by the way, we're very focused on keeping it that way.
Yeah. So I'm talking to David Chevrun, who's with the American Casualty and Life Insurance industry. Now, one of the things that's interesting about your industry, as you said, is that you're huge investors in the American economy because that savings, it gets recirculated into funding American businesses and so on. You mentioned $8 trillion. Do you recommend that people, let's say that you retire at, say, 68 or 67 years old, then do you cash in how does it work with respect to the annuity? Can you get the payments at that point, or how does that work?
Yeah, what's very common is for people to, as they're nearing retirement, they've got a chunk of money, and what's very common is they're trying to figure out what to do with it to make it last. Right. And they take that chunk of money. It's not all of it necessarily. They tell you what you want is a piece of assured income. You take a chunk of that money that you've saved up, and you purchase basically a promise of assured monthly income for the rest of your life, so that your family's safe. You don't have to rely on your kids. You can live the independent life you want to live. And because as you reach that closer to retirement, right, and we're getting there, you and I, what you worry about is what if the markets drop? What if something volatile happens in the world? What if we run into another recession or, God forbid, a depression of some sort? And what you really want is guarantee, assurance. And again, my members have been doing this. They've been doing this throughout lots of different circumstances in the American history, and we're going to keep doing it.
So, as I just mentioned, I turned 65 in February. So now I'm starting to, look into, well, I'm not going to retire anytime soon, but I am interested in, okay, what am I going to do when I really do retire, which could be in 5 years, 10 years, I don't know, 20 years. I hope to work till the day I die. But nonetheless, one of the things I noticed, David, is that if I were to retire now, after all these years of paying into Social Security, I'm not rich, but I've done, decently, they're going to pay me $3,000 a month, which is robbery. I mean, my God, I've paid in so much money over the last 40 years. And so my point of bringing that up is I can't live on $3,000 a month. And I don't think just about anybody can if you want to maintain a upper middle income living standard and you want to live well when you're retired. So you need a supplement to Social Security, right?
Yeah. I mean, Social Security was always intended to be a baseline of support, right? Right. Again, a core. It was never intended to replace everybody's planning for retirement or pensions or or other options people have. Something like an annuity really does is it kind of lets you create your own pension, if you will. It's a private sector solution that lets you supplement Social Security, supplement other things you have going on in your life to give that retirement you want. And, we're reaching where more and more people every day, we're reaching peak 65, right, where we're going to have more 65-year-olds than any time in history. And, there's going to be more and more people every day wanting to get that assurance for the rest of your life. And as an industry, that's our business. We're there for the long term.
So we just have 2 minutes left. You make a very compelling case for these products. The last question is, my financial advisor is at Morgan Stanley, and I have a couple of people advise me. How do if you want to purchase one of these products, how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, actually, most financial advisors, that's how I got mine, are pretty conversant in them and can talk to you about how you build a set of things for retirement. So financial advisors are a great place to start. Obviously, the companies in my membership have a great online presence where they set this out and explain it. But
hold on just a sec. David, hold on just a sec. So let's say, because we have an audience of we have an older audience for this show. So what if you don't have a financial advisor, but you want to get one of these financial instruments? Then what do you do?
Yeah, a great thing I'd suggest is first of all, you can find a financial advisor locally, or find a company you trust, a company with whom you may have had a life insurance policy, by the way, or a company you trust, and open a conversation with them. Look at what's on their website. Reach out to one of their agents and talk through the particulars. And in particular, look at the details. It's a big decision, but it's a good decision for people.
It sure is. Well, David Cheverton, thanks so much for joining. I'd love to have you on again in another few weeks and kind of keep us informed of what's going on with this important industry. The number that I'm coming away with is $8 trillion from this industry is invested in America, which is an incredible thing. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for supporting WABC, David. You guys have been great sponsors of this show. I appreciate it so much. Folks, we will be right back. And when we come back, I will be, as favorite part of my show, I'll be taking your calls. Who are you for? Are you for Elon Musk? Are you for Donald Trump? Do you think they should kiss and make up? Do you think that this is irreparable? I would love to see them stop the pie throwing at each other, but we'll see what happens. And I'm at our number for the More Money hotline is 1-800-848-9222. I'm told that we still have 2 lines open. I want to hear what you think. I mean, I like both these guys, and I want them I want a détente, but I want to hear from you. 1-800-848-WABC when we get back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at Friskies.com or visit your local store.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Llegaron los nuevos McCrispy Strips, listos para aventurarse en la mezcla de mayo ketchup, la barbecue que quedó en el fondo de la cajita, Hot Fudge Sundae y en la nueva Creamy Chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Los nuevos McCrispy Strips, ahora en McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. We'll be taking your calls now. It's the More Money Hotline. We love to talk about politics. We love to talk about the economy. The question for the day is, given that we have the fisticuffs, the verbal fisticuffs between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who do you like? Who do you think's right in this one? I think Elon Musk is correct that there is way too much spending in Washington. I agree with him. I think he's a hero for what he's trying to do, but I don't like him disparaging this big, beautiful bill, because I think we got to pass that too. I guess maybe this was inevitable, the fact that you have these two super egos in Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and maybe that, somebody had to be the alpha male in the room. But I mean, I find it amusing to watch, but I also find it a little heartbreaking, because I think these two could be the dynamic duo if they could keep it keep it together. But it looks like some of the things that have been said over the last few days, I don't know if they can ever kiss and make up. But let's go with we got one line open, 1-800-848-9222. All the other lines are taken right now, but we'd love to hear from you. I love to hear your words of wisdom. And let's start with Lori.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for calling in.
You're welcome. Okay, first, I never really had any opinion of Elon Musk before he got involved with Trump.
Okay.
I love Trump since he came down the escalator.
Wait a minute. Hold on. From the very start, you were for Trump.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Okay. It
and
took
I'm
me
a
a couple months to warm up to Trump.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
But anyway.
by the way, let me ask you, because you're in my focus group. What is it from the very beginning that you liked about Trump?
He was better than any other candidate, and the administration before him was horrible.
That's true. Okay. So what do you think? Elon Musk or Donald Trump? Who's right here?
Okay. So like you said, they have both tremendous egos.
Right.
All right. And I can't believe how reserved Trump was during this issue the last few days. I think Elon just went he's a little too eccentric and more flamboyant than Trump wanted.
Yeah.
With the chainsaw and everything, I think he was just like throwing all these government people jobs under the bus, which, some of them might have been legitimate and, but still, I hope they make up too.
I too. Great call, Lori. And, listen, I think that there was a little bit of naivete on the part of Elon Musk thinking he could come to Washington and drain the swamp. And by the way, we need to drain the swamp. There's no doubt about that. 3 of the 5 wealthiest counties are in Washington. We take your money and we absorb it in Washington. We don't do much with it that's of any use to, I shouldn't say that. I'd say about half of what the government does is really important. About half of the money is wasted, in my opinion. And when you've got a $7 trillion budget, that means there's somewhere near $3 to $3.5 trillion that is going right down the sewer. And so Elon Musk recognized that. He deserves a Nobel Prize for really exposing and detecting all that waste and telling us the incredible things that the government is doing with our money. The fact that you have all these people over 125 years old that are supposedly receiving Social Security checks, and the fact that you've got the foreign aid establishment sending out hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. We don't even know. They can't even tell us what happened to the money. I mean, how do you lose hundreds of millions of dollars? The fact that you have 56 different job training programs and 47 different disability programs and this and that, and the left hand of the government doesn't know what the right hand of the government does. The fact that 90% of federal employees weren't showing up for work on, 5 days a week like most of us do. I mean, it was just the outrages were as high as the Washington Monument. And so I have great respect for Elon for telling us about that. But I think he underestimated how tough it is to drain the swamp. As I told the Washington Post the other day when they called me and asked me about this, it's, the Washington swamp, the swamp creatures will chew you up and spit you out, even if you're Elon Musk. And that's why we have to do something about these creatures in Washington that are so self-serving. But let's go to Russ.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, thanks for calling in. So what do you think of this spat?
Oh, the spat. I think it's enlightening. Everything with Trump is very enlightening. And half of the budget wasted, and we're paying interest on that waste, too. I wanted to point that out.
Yes,
it was a very good point you made.
Yes, we are, sir.
But, I think Trump admired Musk because he's a real earner, but I think Musk mistook kindness for weakness in Trump's character. In other words, Musk thought that $500 million for Trump's campaign and congressional races entitled Musk to name the NASA administrator who'd be sympathetic to Musk's, SpaceX goals, and that Trump would go for a quid pro quo. But Trump this time had a little bit more character, although I think Trump agreed and then rescinded it. He said no because the NASA administrator was more of a Democrat. But what I want to ask you specifically, if Musk lied and broke the law in his visa application, should he be deported because equal justice means no double standard? And Steve, one more thing Bannon said, should vital defense companies like SpaceX be seized like Truman seized the steel mills? Thanks very much. And I think that kid of Musk is very clingy. The kid named X. I think he never sees his dad. That's what the problem is. Okay, thanks.
Great points. Great points. And there was I was watching this HBO last night when my wife and I got home. We had been to a party and we turned on, and they had that comedy show that they have on, and Bill Maher show. And he can be funny. I used to do the Bill Maher show all the time, and he had a funny line where he said, that Donald Trump sent out a tweet, and it said that what was it? The tweet was, "Oh, dear Elon, by the way, Mars is an S-hole planet." I thought that was a really, really funny line. Okay, let's go to John.
Hey, Steve, thanks for taking my call. I called originally because I heard this guy talking about the annuities, and every teacher I know has an annuity. This is what we were sold 30 years ago. We all were signed up for annuities. So I was glad to hear that this is a good instrument. But
so
getting on to the current topic.
So hold on before you leave that. So do you have an annuity?
Okay. Yes, I do. I've had one since I started, and it's I'll be 59 in July, and you can't take anything out till you're 59 and a half, but you don't have to. But then you reach a certain age and you have to start taking.
So do you think annuities are a good financial instrument?
I think so. I mean, as long as you don't mess with them too much, like you can call up to your advisor and say, look, I want it to be in an aggressive portfolio, or I want it to be a moderate portfolio, or I want it to be bonds. And they'll do that. At the end of the trading day, they'll adjust it for you. But leave it alone.
What else have you got on your mind, sir?
As far as the Musk thing goes, everybody who's been a fan since the escalator is conditioned to deal with this kind of stuff, because we have what Chappelle called these cringe moments where we hear something about him, about Trump, and we go, "Oof, did he have to say that?" And so we're used to this kind of thing. But in this case, I think Elon just lost it.
I do too.
And I found out that there are certain things that you cannot put in this bill that they're putting through right now, a reconciliation bill. You can't put the cuts that Doge found in a reconciliation bill. They have to come in I forget what they call it, with an R. They have to be rescinded.
The rescissions.
And they are coming. The rescissions are coming, but Musk didn't understand the political aspects of this and lost it. And he went nuts. And I think they're going to come back together, because where's Musk going to go? Sweden?
Great point, John.
Where's he going to go?
Yeah, good call. Excellent points. I agree with you on all of what you said, John. And I would say that, I'll say it again, I think that Elon Musk thought it would be easy, that government is run like a business. It is not. I wish it were. He thought he could come in as like the CEO of Doge and command these agencies to reform themselves, and they wouldn't do it because, and by the way, the media went crazy. I think one of the outrageous things that's happened over the last 4 months is that so many of my friends on the left and so many of my Democratic friends, instead of being angry about all the waste that Elon Musk was exposing, they were mad at Elon Musk for exposing the waste. I've made this point so many times, and I think the only reason they're angry about this is because I think there are a lot of people who get rich off of the waste. In other words, if you're wasting $1, $2, $3 trillion a year, that's a lot of money that's lining somebody's pockets. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. We know that a lot of that money doesn't even go to American people. I mean, it's one thing if somebody's defrauding the United States than an American citizen, but at least in that case, the money stays in America. A lot of this money goes to fraudsters who live in Russia or live in China or live in some of Iran, and they figured out how to hack the systems and get these free dollars from American taxpayers. No wonder we're losing $2 trillion. No wonder we're running this enormous debt, and nobody's done anything about it. Elon, at least I think his lasting legacy will be that he told America, here is what's really happening when you look under the hood of government. And for that, I think he deserves a great bronze medal or maybe a gold medal. Let's go to Bobby.
Hello. Elon's mad at Trump because Trump cut him out of the space industry.
I'm sorry, because what?
Trump cut him out of the space industry in the United States.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's where this started. And now he's like throwing a tantrum, it looks like. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Good call. I think we've got one more John waiting on the line.
Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Good. Thanks for calling.
just like any bar, there's always two Johns. I don't want to really talk about Elon. I just wanted to bring up something that's been bothering me ever since I read Seth Lipsky's book, The Floating Kilogram, and how we're not really coupling the dollar with gold, and we rely on petrodollars now. What if Congress, which I think is constitutionally required to set the value of the dollar, took all federal land and divided it by the amount of M2 money supply, and said now a dollar is worth, I think it comes out to like $1.30 a square foot.
Well, I think we may have lost you, John, but here's my thinking about the monetary system. First of all, I do not believe that we should put so much authority into the hands of a few people, including Jerome Powell, who's the head of the Federal Reserve Board. Why do we have to have a Federal Reserve Board? Why can't we simply have a system? Next week, I'm going to try to get Steve Forbes back on the. Steve is one of my best friends. I admire him so much. He's a partner of mine in Unleash Prosperity. Nobody understands the monetary system better than Steve Forbes. And he's always said, look, let's peg the dollar to something. And he's saying, let's peg it to gold. And if you do that, I mean, by the way, the gold price has doubled over the last couple of years. It was $1,800. Now it's, I think the last time I checked, $3,300 an ounce for gold. That means you've got a currency that is losing its value. When gold price goes up, it means the value of the dollar goes down. That's what inflation is. And so we put all this power into these people like Jerome Powell. And by the way, they have 250 or 300 economists over at the Federal Reserve Board with their computers and this and that. It's not that complicated. By the way, 80% of those people are Democrats, and they get the models all wrong. They're the ones who allowed the inflation rate to go up 9% in the Biden administration. In just 1 year, 9% increase in prices. Over the 4 years, prices were up about 25%. Now, of course, you all know that that's because of the Biden spending spree and the amount of, and I shouldn't say just Biden, the Biden and the Republican spending spree, because both parties love to spend money. But when you spend money you don't have and you print money, you're making the dollars worth less. One of my favorite economists, who I was so honored to have gotten to know, was Milton Friedman. And Milton Friedman was a legend. And he taught us that when you have the government just opening up the printing presses and putting more and more zeros on the bills and then spitting them out in the economy and throwing them out of helicopter windows, that depreciates the value of the currency. And that's what inflation is. Now, the good news is, because Donald Trump is president, because he's doing supply side policies that will increase the productive capacity of the country, when you produce more goods and services, their prices go down. This is something that Jerome Powell doesn't understand. There is it's how much money do you have versus how many goods and services are you producing? If you produce more goods and services, prices go down, right? And if you produce more money, prices go up. And that's something that's so simple that a sixth grader could understand it. But these PhD economists from Harvard can't seem to understand how to keep inflation under control. Now, the good news is Trump has inflation running right now at between 2 and 2.5%. That's a very positive thing. I'm very bullish on what Trump is doing. We have more workers working today than ever before. We have more job openings than ever before. We've got to balance our budget. We've got to pass this tax cut. We've got to get these trade deals done, folks. If we do those three things, we're going to see a great American economic renaissance. I can guarantee you it's going to happen. It's not hard. And the one guy who can get it done is thankfully the guy in the White House right now, and that's Donald Trump. Folks, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's been a fun day for me to have all these wonderful guests on. The calls were great as usual. We'll be back, same bat time, same bat channel next week, and have a wonderful weekend. But before you leave, you got to listen to Ryan and Bob Payne to give you advice on how to make more money.
Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Ryan Payne and Bob Payne back again on the More Money Show from Payne Capital Management. Of course, that's Payne, talking about the markets, the economy, and your retirement. I thought we could do a financial autopsy today. Court, you and I worked on one recently. This individual did a great job saving. He's saving for retirement. But man, oh man, he had two different institutions managing his money. And I have never seen such egregiousness as what we saw on these two different accounts. And I thought we could break down some of the issues that this individual had that we pointed out to him that are going to make a big impact on his financial life because he really didn't know what his issues were.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I noticed kind of right off the bat here was how much concentration he had. And what was interesting is he had two different people managing his money, and they were managing it very similarly. And there was a lot of overlap. Like one of the areas we pointed out was how much U.S. technology exposure he had. And both firms were doing the same thing. And we actually broke down 11 different funds that all basically just owned your U.S. tech index. And he thought he was much better diversified because of the amount of funds he owned. But they just all owned the same thing.
And they all have different names, right? One's called like the Growth International Fund, but it really just owned Microsoft, NVIDIA, Tesla, you name it. It was almost like 30% plus of his net worth really concentrated in one area. And the other part of it is the fees on top of it. You know, we talk about the devil that you see, or you don't see rather, is worse than the devil that you do when it comes to Wall Street. And the internal cost on these funds in some cases was as high as 2%. That's just on the internal cost. And they were paying an advisory fee, which brought the fee up to like 2.5%, which, by the way, that's extremely high when you're talking about managing money over time.
Well, you know, guys, it's this is the same old that I've seen for 50 years. First of all, you have with a mutual fund, you know, they have this need to keep up with the index. And because the index is capitalization weighted, you end up getting concentrated in the stocks that are outperforming because if you don't, you're going to get trounced by the index. And that's the reason why most mutual funds underperform. So that's one huge conflict of interest. The other conflict of interest, one I haven't seen for a while, was you had an online stockbroker churning the account. I haven't used the word churning in about 30 years.
Yeah, it's wild because that account did 24% last year, and he was bragging it did 24%. Meanwhile, had he just bought the index did like 33%. So in a good year for growth, it was supposed to be a growth portfolio. He was up, but he didn't realize he was just up because the tide was up, right? It wasn't because his investment manager was smart. Furthermore, we counted the investment manager did 195 transactions on his account last year, and we add up all the commissions and end up being about 3.2% of his portfolio. So, and it was very hard to find these commissions, by the way. They weren't just marked up right there on the statement. You actually had to find them. So again, they were hidden, but this guy thought he was doing great. Meanwhile, he dramatically underperformed the index, and his fees were astronomically high.
And I find this all the time where people will think they're with somebody who is really intelligent. Like they're making all these trades. They know what's happening in the stock markets. Like there's a lot of like blind trust that will go into that and say, yeah, I did so well. I was up 24%. But yeah, that's what you have to say is, okay, but what did the index do? Because you'd think you're getting something good with all this trading and all these high fees. Like you must have a really good manager. But oftentimes that is what happens historically where they do underperform the markets at a minimum by the amount of their fees, because you have to be smarter than the markets to make up for your fees. That just doesn't happen consistently enough for that to make any sense.
Well, this might work, you know, when AI comes out, because when there's a human being whose only way to compensate themselves is to generate a commission, right? The incentive is just too overwhelming, right? So I can sit here and do nothing and I make nothing. Or I could just do something and I can pay my mortgage this month, as opposed to a fiduciary who has to work in your best interest. So it's amazing how very few commissioned stockbrokers exist anymore. But when you do see one, you know, they just don't have a chance. They're going to overtrade the account because that's how they get compensated.
Well, what's crazy about it too is, this individual said, well, you know, this guy is always sending me research. He's sending me reports. I'm like, yes, he is, because he wants to do a trade to get a commission. And I'm saying to him, you know, I don't think you really care about what's going on with Amazon this quarter. He's like, you're right, I don't. So, you know, bottom line is this is like an old school broker. And again, you could have bought the index for 0.1% a year fee, and it did 8% better last year just owning the index, which also speaks to professional money managers, net of their fee, historically can't outperform the index. So why would you ever hire a money manager? It just doesn't work.
So you guys thinking that maybe the Trump administration is going to mandate that all financial advisors become commissioned stockbrokers so we can increase unnecessary taxes on the investing populace to fund the deficit? What do you think?
It's one way of doing it, Bob.
That is one way to do it. And, the other point too is those mutual funds is the cost on those was astronomical. And again, these are the fees you can't see. They were paying an advisory fee, which was almost 1%. And then you had internal costs that were almost 2%. So again, you're talking about just astronomical fees. All these funds have underperformed.
Yep.
And to your point, Cord, they're tax inefficient. And again, they're extremely high in fees. And we factored in just going to a lower cost strategy where the income's higher, performance is better. We were going to save him $88,000 a year. That's hard dollars. And I compound that over 20 years. That was over $2 million that goes into this investor's pocket. And again, that's not doing anything different. That's just lowering the cost of the actual portfolio. That's not doing anything magical, but he's going to have another $2 million just making sure the fees aren't exorbitant.
But Rod, what about the stockbroker's yacht? I mean, how's he going to support that?
Well, yeah, that is concerning. That's very concerning. I think the stockbroker probably could afford a yacht now with all the churning. But the other part of it too is, Bob, I know what you don't like is for the safe part of the investments, they have bond funds, high-risk bond funds that trade with the same kind of volatility to some extent the stocks do, and the money doesn't come due. So there's no protection in this portfolio because we know with bonds, if you own them, you want them to pay interest. Bob likes to say you want to have permanency and definition. You want to know that money's coming back to you. And that's not the case for the vast majority of the fixed income in this portfolio.
And it's almost impossible to customize a portfolio, for an investor if you don't know what your fixed rate of returns are going to be. And I think that's the biggest issue I have, with these open-ended mutual fund investments in bonds is that you can't calculate what the return's going to be. There's no way to guess. As opposed to a fixed income portfolio where you know exactly what the coupon is, you know what's going to be generated each year, when your money's going to come due to, fund, certain needs. So it's just lazy investing on the part of our colleagues, our competition, I should say. They're not really our colleagues.
And it gets more egregious than that. At the one firm, of course, they're recommending their own funds. And of course, their own fund has one of the highest expense ratios in the industry. So, where's the conflict of interest there, right? I mean, the fact that you're actually not only taking a fee to manage the portfolio, but then you're recommending your own fund to the client. So it just goes on. And this is what I think is really dangerous in a bull market because everything's going up. Everybody feels good. And you're almost like you're taking your eye off the ball with all those really important longer term components like lower cost, higher cash flow, tax efficiency. And clearly, these portfolios, fine, the market's going up, but when they go down, at some point, markets are going to go down. It's going to be a real rude awakening on top of the fact that your portfolio is going down. You've got all these other issues. If you saved over $1 million for your retirement, myself and Bob and our team at Payne Capital will run for you our total financial master plan, and we'll do that with no obligation or cost. It's a full holistic review. We literally look at everything. There's not a firm out there that will do this work up front. We go as far as building you your own personalized financial portal. We give you a bird's eye view of your entire financial life, and we'll hone in on every financial issue you need to address today, whether it's that income plan for retirement. How do you take Social Security? There's a lot of ways to take it, but one right way for you. How do you draw from your portfolio the most tax efficient way? We'll give you a full income plan, factor in inflation so you don't run out of money. We're going to look at diversification. Markets have been all over the place, up and down. Has your portfolio been extremely volatile? Or have you been sitting in cash? Paralysis by analysis, can't figure out what to do. We'll put together a full diversified investment game plan, show you how to grow your wealth, tie it to your goals, but most importantly, protect it over the rest of your life. And we're going to look at fees and taxes. Wall Street loves to sell you high cost, tax inefficient products, whether it's an annuity, mutual fund, insurance product, brokerage product. We're going to go through every investment you have, deep dive. We're going to show you how to reduce all the internal cost and optimize your portfolio for taxes. It's not what you make, it's what you take. You'll get our full tax playbook. We literally have 4 slots left. If you saved over $1 million for your retirement, all you need to do is call or text at 844-752-6692. That's 844-752-6692. If you call or text us right now at 844-752-6692, that's 844-PLAN-NYC, 844-PLAN-NYC.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?